What's good? It's your man Hurykane telling you what it do. And we about to talk about the rebellion. The Bacon's Rebellion. We'll burn this country down.
We looked at the colonial roots of racism. In the early evolution of colonization, the expanding empire built its wealth off the backs of ethnic Europeans and various other groups, including Africans. The tendency of oppressed and colonized people to band together motivated the colonial powers, in this case England, to enact laws that were intended to draw differences between the groups and create stratification. Still, even though it's difficult to imagine now, in the early 1600s, race and racism wasn't yet firmly entrenched. In his book,
Right, wasn't even firmly entrenched yet. Crazy shit. They was like, oh shit, the poor blacks and the poor whites coming together, they're gonna destroy us, we need to make some laws.
And from the beginning, the definitive history of racist ideas in America, Ibram X. Kendi notes that the word race, as applied to human beings, doesn't appear in any dictionary until 1606. In an uncanny coincidence, the first permanent English colony in the Americas was established at Jamestown in 1607. Even though the concept of race was still in its infancy, the connection between colonization and racial oppression was established from the outset. In 1589, one of the chief promoters of English colonization of the Americas, Richard Hakluyt, published a collection of nearly all available documents describing British overseas ventures. In it, Hakluyt urged explorers, traders, and missionaries to fulfill their superior destiny to civilize, Christianize, capitalize, and command the world. Hakluyt set the framework for the early history of the British North American colonies, whereby European ethnic immigrants, Native American and women, as well as Africans, occupied a social caste that defined them as colonial subjects to be ruled over, and whose value lay solely in their capacity to generate capital.
Yep, we need y'all poor blacks and poor whites and all your ethnic motherfucking foreigners to be exploited, make us money.
As we've seen, the Irish were often forced migrants into the early American colonies, but even those who came willingly began to make up a discontented class of poor whites, often referred to as the giddy multitude. The giddy multitude resented their status as mere economic units to be exploited for capital gain, and had a strong sense that they had been duped into coming to the Americas. Those who survived their term of indenture were typically given.
It's like, damn, they said this was the American dream. And you wonder why the Irish mob, the Russian mob, and other mobs started.
And land far out in the colonial frontier, where they confronted hostile Native Americans who didn't take kindly to intruders. For the colonial elite, those undesirables were simply out of sight and out of mind. They weren't concerned with the harsh and hostile climate into which the poor had been cast out, and they expended little thought or effort into offering the frontier folk any sort of protection as colonial subjects. Consequently, the giddy multitude was becoming an increasingly unruling group of poor whites and blacks who began to pose a real threat to the colonial elite. As European ethnic immigrants and African captives increasingly banded together to resist exploitation, acts of interethnic solidarity prompted the colonial elite to enact laws to drive a wedge between the communities. Virginia's first legal decision to acknowledge race came in 1630, when a white colonist was sentenced to be whipped for defiling his body and lying with a Negro. As Ibram X. Kendi notes, in addition to being the first decision to acknowledge race in the colonies, it was the first recorded instance of gender racism in America. That initial step in designating blacks with a separate and distinct legal status eventually paved the way for race-based slavery, but we're not quite there yet. Along the way, laws were enacted that punished black and white runaways differently and imposed special penalties for whites who ran away in the company of blacks. In yet another step, the colonial ethos of civilizing and Christianizing its colonial subjects brought with it a contradiction that also had to be addressed from a legal standpoint. If civilizing their subjects meant Christianizing them, wouldn't Christianizing Africans make them ineligible for slave status? Could Christians enslave other Christians? To address that dilemma, Virginia decreed in a 1667 law that conversion to Christianity doesn't alter one's status of bondage. Since African arrival in 1619, the laws that separated black and white were gradually enacted in such a way as to make the words white, Christian, and free practically synonymous, while blackness became synonymous with slave status. But there was one event that accelerated that trend. Poor folks on the frontier had a rough go of it. Not only were they excluded from the best land near the coast, but their presence on the frontier forced them into conflict with the indigenous population. In 1676, Nathaniel Bacon approached the British-appointed governor of Virginia, Lord William Berkeley, and requested an army commission so that he and the frontier folk could deal with the Native American problem themselves. Fresh off of a costly war with Metacom, who led an indigenous resistance against English settlement into Algonquin land, Lord Berkeley was reluctant to be drawn into another conflict with the Native Americans. He was also understandably reticent about arming a group of unruly whites and blacks on the Virginia frontier. Instead of sending help, Lord Berkeley resolved to fortify a chain of forts protecting the colonial elite in Jamestown, a solution that provided little comfort to those out on the frontier, so the frontiersmen, black and white, rallied behind Bacon. When Nathaniel declared Bacon a rebel, and Bacon's rebellion was on. The rebels marched onto Jamestown, captured it, pillaged the estates of the pro-Berkeley elite, and burned Jamestown to the ground. By the time an English force arrived to crush the revolt, Bacon himself had died of dysentery, and his army of indentured and former servants, along with runaway slaves, was already falling apart. Bacon's rebellion led to tighter British control of the colony. It may have also hastened the movement toward a labor system based on black slavery. Some historians argue that the Virginia planters, fearing another insurrection by former white servants, affixed their gaze more exclusively to Africa for laborers and sought to divide blacks and whites by creating an artificial color line. This is the moment.
Yep, made a color line. This is the moment.
When race and racism radically altered the system of forced labor that had been practiced by human civilization for thousands of years by injecting race into the equation. Did Bacon's rebellion hasten the establishment of a racialized labor system based on black labor? Let's review the evidence. It's clear that the colonial elite were deeply concerned about the potential for blacks and poor whites to join forces. While the trend towards making...
Yeah, they're like, damn, we can't let these blacks and whites join forces and destroy our system. This is why I say, viva la revolution. The only solution is revolution.
Slave status exclusive to blacks began before Bacon's rebellion. There does seem to be a clustering of those efforts in the 1660s through the early 1700s. That trend can be seen even in the rebellion itself. In 1680, Virginia legislators pardoned only the white rebels. Additionally, African Americans caught in the commission of a crime were committed to slavery for life, while indentured...
Yeah, pardon the white rebels, but the black rebels, y'all gotta be slaves for life. God damn. My question is, why the whites ain't go back and get the blacks and be like, yo, shit, we good now. Peace, nigga.
Servants simply had years added to their term. Slave status became based on the status of a mother. An odd development in a patrilineal society, but it also marks a turn towards perpetual slavery in which slavery is passed down from generation to generation. By 1691, there were also laws against abominable mixture or miscegenation. At the same time, while slave status was based on the status of the mother, there was an actual economic incentive for white slave owners to rape black slave women. A dirty little secret.
Ooh, there was an incentive for white slave masters to grape slave women. God damn.
Of slavery that was a common experience for black women.
A common experience.
In 1705, the Virginia legislature also denied blacks the ability to hold office. Simultaneously.
Yeah, black people couldn't even hold office. Just like some of you black people couldn't have churches until the white man knew you was fully indoctrinated slave for life.
We see a deliberate effort to emphasize a color line between blacks and poor whites, elevating the stats of poor whites just enough to keep the giddy multitude at bay and create an artificial incentive for poor whites to protect status, which was only slightly better than that of black slave. As Ibram X. Kendi also notes, Virginia lawmakers made slave patrols compulsory for non-slave holding whites.
Yep, slave patrols, night watch, oh yeah.
Those groups of white citizens were charged with policing slaves, enforcing discipline, and guarding the routes of escape.
Yep. So some of the white rebels that fought with the black rebels, those motherfuckers, oh yep, I got my status. Peace, nigga. Oh yeah, and I'm a slave patrol, nigga. I'm about to lock you up. But we work together, brother. Well, we ain't brothers no more. I got my status, nigga. Get in the paddy wagon.
Step by step, the words English, Christian, white, and free became nearly synonymous in the minds of white colonizers. It also became synonymous in the minds of poor whites, even in the face of their own oppression. As poor whites cast their lot with the colonial elite, let's not forget that in many places until the 1830s, property qualifications excluded many poor whites from voting. By 1860,
Yep, and there were some places whites couldn't. Was like, what the fuck? But
only about a quarter of Southern families owned slaves. Yet during the Civil War, a war openly premised on protecting and extending slavery, the
yeah, a war that wanted to extend slavery.
Confederacy instituted a policy that exempted anyone who owned 20 or more slaves from service in the military.
What?
So it was largely the non-slaveholding class that were left to go off to war, fight, and die to protect the elite status of the slaveholding class. The sheer stupidity is mind-boggling.
Yeah, sheer stupidity. And I have a video, Stupidity versus Evil. And I say, my solution, eradicate stupidity and evil together. They grouped up in one group.
As the colonies and later the United States went down a path of increased dependence on black slave labor, the diabolical ingenuity of racism was that it proved an effective way to oppress blacks and dupe poor whites into becoming active and willing agents of their own oppression.
Yep, I hear that. Even the phone agrees. Now we live in an age of war and confusion and division and shit. They're killing us through the food, through the water, through the air, through disease. And it's crazy that there's more white brothers that want to fight alongside me in this revolution. We need another revolution. And this time it ain't going to be no other power. Everybody going to be officially free. Do whatever, you know. But we about to get our land back. And everybody can live in fucking peace. No chemtrails in the air, no fluoride in the water, no GMOs in the food. We can finally get back to nature. If y'all want to use the money, keep using the money. But some people are going to be going to the barter system. It's going to be both probably. But the revolution is going to be glorious. It may take 2 years, 7 years, 10 years. Who cares? However long it take. We got to motherfucking liberate. We got to exterminate this government.
More wives into becoming active and willing agents of their own oppression. What are your thoughts? Since it seems that racism was initially prompted to serve a colonial purpose, do you see any of those colonial frameworks in place today?
Yeah.
How might those frameworks be dismantled? This is a question.
How can the frameworks be dismantled? Through revolution. We need another rebellion. Because the white folks feel the pain too. That's why they want to join my revolution. But most black people look at me like I'm fucking nuts and crazy. Why you want to fight the government? You can't beat a tank. You damn right I can't beat no tank, but I can steal one. Allegedly. But at the end of the day, we're being killed through the food, through the water, through the air, through disease. Inflation ain't go away. The fucking price of living is up. And we need to motherfucking take back our land and go back to peace. Like real shit. I'll go solar power or fucking destroy the fucking energy headquarters and have everybody getting free energy for life. But like if a storm come and knock out your power, good luck. You have to go solar any fucking way.
Can only be addressed through collective dialogue. So I greatly appreciate your insights in the comments below.
Alright, so that's the end of that. My thoughts on this is the Baker's Rebellion, pro-blacks, pro-whites, come together and burn your country down. But there's more to the story than that. There was a lot of shit that was going on, like with the natives working with Virginia, and a lot of natives working with like some other motherfuckers. There was a lot of shit going on. But look up the Baker's Rebellion. It's a great story.
On a mission, gotta knock a bunch of fans off a hit list. Put a politician head on a hit list. I'm the motherfucker wind that is endless. Spin it like a hurricane when I spit shit. Lift a Pentagon up in an instant. Blow the White House up with a vengeance. Be the dictator ass with an engine. Vengeance. Kill the prime minister and your minister. Call me new X-Man Sinister. With a badass bitch named Jennifer. Caught a fan slipping up in the cinema. Suppressor on a gun, I'm a renner, bruh. Black John Wick bitch when I'm killing ya. But the goal is time for us to hit 'em up. On a mission, with a 50 count ripping, everybody get from a distance. Shot him in the kitchen, body getting biscuits, and I saw his wife choking on a Triscuit. Now I need a punisher, killing everybody running up. Hit a motherfucker with a double cup, pick up another truck. Man, y'all better armor up. Throw your ass through a charter bus, can't kill one of us. We the motherfucking revolution. Speaking fluent, the music I got